Hi, I am Reverend Belinda Gentry, the missions pastor of First Baptist Church of Glenarden. So excited today to bring to you this 4-part series on Alzheimer's awareness. We call it The Power of Love. This series is brought to you as a collaboration between several partners. First Baptist Church of Glenarden Missions Ministries Department, also First Baptist Church of Glenarden's Alzheimer's Support Group, Dementia Friendly America Prince George's County, Pickett Senior Services Incorporated, and Visiting Angels of Largo, Maryland. The facilitators of the sessions are determined to make as many people as possible aware of not only the effects of dementia, but particularly Alzheimer's, and give you resources to help you deal with this disease. At the end of each session, there will be a resource slide. Be sure to take a screenshot so that you can get the help that you need. I am so excited to present to you this morning Irma Nicholson. She is the brain and passion behind this series. And God used her to ensure that you would be able to get the information and the resources that you need. Irma is an advocate, serious advocate for dementia and Alzheimer's. She is a caregiver, and she is a member of First Baptist Church Glenarden Alzheimer's Support Group, the Hope Ministry, and Dementia Friendly America Prince George's County initiatives. So let me just turn it over to Irma so she can tell you how this all came about. Irma?
Good morning. At the beginning of this year, God gave me a burning desire to share my journey and to help other caregivers who may be dealing with Alzheimer's and individuals who might have Alzheimer's and not be aware. So I shared my passion with Vicki Kalinsky and Shonda Bellamy and asked them their ideas about this matter because it was such a passion to me, and I want to know their thoughts since we all are a part of Dementia Friendly America initiative. I had such a passion about this that I shared my thoughts with Reverend Belinda Gentry, and as a result of this, Alzheimer's 2020, The Power of Love was birthed out. We hope to inspire you, uplift you, give you resources, educate you, give you support and resources so you can deal with the everyday issues dealing with Alzheimer's. And with the guidance of God, we can make it through each day. Thank you.
So that was great, and you could feel Irma's passion as she spoke. And you'll hear more from Irma in part 4 of the series, when she and a few of her friends who are caregivers will share with you from their heart their journey. So enjoy the series. We are grateful to bring it to you because we know that this is the time and this is the season for you to know what to do and where to get help.
Hi, my name is Shonda Bellamy, and I am the president of Pickett Senior Services. I also serve as the community liaison for the Dementia Friendly America Prince George's County initiative. Also, I am the president of the Hope Ministry, a missions ministry here at the First Baptist Church of Glenarden. Today, I will discuss the 10 warning signs of dementia. During this session, you'll learn about the warning signs and also if you observe these signs in a parishioner, a family member, or friend, what you should do. When a person experiences memory loss, it's not always contributed to Alzheimer's or dementia. It could be that their thyroid is not regulated, their high blood pressure could not be regulated, their diabetes may be out of control, some medications cause memory loss, and also drinking too much alcohol. The key is to understand the warning signs and to seek medical attention if you observe these signs in your loved one. First, let's go over the objectives for today. We'll recognize the common warning signs of dementia. We'll discuss common or normal age-related memory loss. We'll also understand the importance of early detection, identify possible tests and assessments to obtain a diagnosis, and identify some community resources. During the first session, we received an overview of the brain and the brain functions. As you can see on this slide, the frontal lobe is responsible for thinking, memory, behavior, and movement. The parietal lobe is responsible for language and touch. The occipital lobe, vision. The cerebellum for balance and coordination. The temporal lobe is for hearing, learning, and feelings. During the first session, we did not discuss the brainstem. However, the brainstem is for breathing, heart rate, and temperature. So that was our recap of session 1, and we'll get into the 10 warning signs now. The first warning sign, memory loss that disrupts daily life. This is one of the most common signs that's seen in individuals who have Alzheimer's or dementia. So during this sign, the frontal lobe of the brain is affected if you're experiencing memory loss that disrupts daily life. So things will occur such as forgetting names, forgetting information that's normally common that you should remember, like important dates, birthdays, also asking the same question over and over. Miss Irma, this is one of the first signs that she recognized in her husband, this repetition of questions. But you'll hear more about that during the last session, the caregiver's perspective. And increasingly relying on memory aids and family members to prompt you in things that you need to do or your daily tasks. As you can see in this slide, we have someone with Post-it notes that's prompting them, did I take my medication today? Is this my daughter? Also, what is the name of my husband? And here you see a mother and a daughter with the mom and the daughter. The daughter is basically assisting the mom with setting up her medication or pill box for the week. This is a task that she was normally able to handle on her own or manage on her own. And so when you see that your loved one now, they're relying more heavily on you for tasks that they were normally able to handle on their own or manage on their own, this is a warning sign. Now, what's typical or common is that we might occasionally forget an appointment, or we might occasionally forget a person's name, but we're able to remember that name later on, or we're able to remember, oh, we did make an appointment. That's just common as we age to forget those things. Warning sign number 2, challenges in planning or solving problems. And so some people may experience changes in their ability to develop a plan and follow it, and also work with numbers. And so if you were the spouse that normally handled the monthly bills and you were, reconciling that checkbook and this was your task, and now all of a sudden you're no longer able to do this. You're heavily dependent on the other spouse or another family member or friend to help you with this task. This could be a warning sign. Numbers and, many steps that can throw a person off with dementia. So, you've made your grandmother's pound cake, every month, say that you've made this pound cake. Now, all of a sudden, it's hard for you to plan what you need to take out for this pound cake. Do I need 3 eggs? Do I need flour? Do I need sugar? All those different steps in the process of making that pound cake, it would be overwhelming for a person with dementia. So having trouble with tasks that were normally familiar to them. Also, difficulty in concentrating is a sign of Alzheimer's or dementia. Warning sign number 3, difficulty in completing familiar tasks. So examples like driving to a familiar location, We know that our former county executive, Rashawn Baker, this was one of the signs that he recognized with his wife. As she was on her way to work, she didn't realize how to get there. And so she called back to find out some directions on how to get there. But this was a task that she normally did on a daily basis, drive to her location or to her job. I also have some relatives who've experienced the same thing, getting lost, going to a particular location, and then calling a family member to find out directions on how to get to a place that they've normally driven on a day-to-day basis. Organizing a grocery list would also be something that's typically hard for someone that has dementia. And remembering rules to your favorite game would also be hard. In this slide, you see a person that's brushing their hair, and they're also, it's showing a toothbrush beside it. A person with dementia could get confused and see that toothbrush and think that it's the hairbrush and begin brushing their hair with that toothbrush. Also, with the toothbrush, it could be that they're having issues with brushing their teeth as well. There are many steps to brushing your teeth. And for a normal brain, it wouldn't be hard to just take out that toothbrush, run a little water on it, add a little toothpaste, and begin completing that task. But for a person with dementia, that's many steps involved, and that would be a hard task for them to manage, even brushing their teeth. But what's typical as we age or normal is needing assistance with like resetting maybe the microwave or resetting the television, setting a DVR, something like that. Those are things that we could commonly need assistance with. But what you want to look for with difficulty with completing familiar tasks, if they're getting lost, driving to a location that they've normally driven to, if they're having issues with organizing lists that they've normally been familiar with doing, this is a warning sign. Warning sign number 4, confusion with time or place. So not remembering dates, seasons, or even passage of time, having trouble understanding something if it's not going to happen immediately, and even forgetting like how you got to a location. I remember many years ago when my grandmother was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, we had gone to visit my paternal grandmother. So my maternal grandmother, when we were there, she kept asking my paternal grandmother over and over where we were. And so they kept going through this routine of talking about, where we are. And then my grandmother would look at me later on and say, Shonda, let's get out of these people's house. Like she didn't truly understand where she was. And so you may experience that with the person with dementia, just like not aware of where they are. And even with the individual becoming confused, like if there's too much stimulation in a location, this could also contribute to that confusion with time and place. Also with confusion with passage of time, I had an uncle who had Alzheimer's, and with him, he would consistently call me my cousin Esther. So my cousin Esther was in his age range, in about their 80s at the time. And so I looked at my uncle when he would consistently call me Esther, and I would ask him, do I look like I'm almost 80 years old? And so he would tell me, I don't know how old you look, but I know you're Esther. So I just became Esther until he was able to remember that I'm Shonda. And so that's one thing that I would say, even though that's not a part of this series, don't cause like an argument with them. Just live in the moment where they are. It'll help you. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. The area of the brain that's affected with this is the occipital lobe. And so trouble understanding visual images, you'll have difficulty with your balance, and the area of the brain that could be affected at that point would be your cerebellum. Trouble reading, problems judging distance, not being able to determine color. And so a lot of times driving will be impacted by that. So I'll share another story about my uncle who calls me Esther. he had issues with judging distance and just visual images. So he was driving one day, and you know what, as you come to the train track crossing, if a train is coming, you see the lights going, and also the little lever or arm will come down. Well, my uncle thought that he couldn't judge the distance. He thought that he was back behind the line, but he had actually been sitting on the train track. And so half of the car was over the train track, the other half at the back. The train came by and basically cut off the back of half of his car, crushed it. And so he still couldn't understand. At this time, he wasn't really considered, he was in the early stages, but he had not received a diagnosis. And we had tried several times at this point to get a diagnosis for him of Alzheimer's or just some cognitive issue. And so he still blamed it on the train. He said that they need to fix that train, they need to fix that arm, because he didn't understand that he was sitting on the track. He had issues in judging that visual distance. But what's typical as we age, like a person may have cataracts when it comes with visual changes. So that's a common age-related change to have cataracts. But actually being able to judge spatial distance, that's a warning sign, a common warning sign. New problems with words, speaking, or writing. You may notice that a person with dementia may have a problem following conversations. They may stop in the middle of the conversation and not understand how to get back to that conversation. Like they may stop mid-sentence and there's no way for them to figure out how to join back in with that conversation. Also repeating themselves over and over, telling you the same story over and over again. That's a common warning sign. And trouble naming objects. So you may look at a watch and you may call the watch an arm clock or a hand clock instead of naming what that object is. And so you may find someone now like pointing out things and not really being able to tell you what that word is. And so it's sometimes, you know, what do we call that? The tip of the tongue moment. So when we all have problems finding that word, and so, you know, that's common, and we call that the tip of the tongue moment, not being able to think of that word. But when you're not able to identify or even really put a word with what that common object is, like as I said, calling a watch a hand clock because you're not able to retrieve that word, that is a common warning sign. And misplacing and losing things, and the ability to retrace steps. This is a common warning sign. So putting things in unusual places, losing things, even accusing others of stealing. I know that we hear over and over about individuals who are being taken care of by a home health care worker, and they'll say, you know, the person stole my Depends. Like, why are they coming in stealing your Depends? But you hear it. That's something common that you hear. I've heard it with family members as well. And also losing things, like losing your keys. We all tend to misplace our keys. And so it's nothing wrong with misplacing the key. And, you know, sometimes you'll even have a person who wears glasses that ask you to help them look for their glasses, and, you know, the glasses are on top of the head. And so that's something that is common. We, you know, commonly lose things. And also putting things in unusual places. On this slide, you see that the person has put the phone in the refrigerator. And so sometimes, you know, we all may do that in haste, like grocery shopping. We come in, you're talking to someone on the phone, you put it in, but you remember that you put the phone in there. But not having the ability to retrace those steps, to go back to the refrigerator to say, hey, you know, I put the phone there, that is a warning sign. I'll share with you another story about my grandmother. And so, you know, many years ago when my grandmother was alive, I'd gone to pick her up to take her to dinner. And so or to lunch, I'm sorry. And so while at lunch, my grandmother took a napkin and she wrapped her chicken up in the napkin. And so then stuffed it in her purse. And so I didn't argue with her. I just knew that when we made it back to her home. I needed to clean out her purse and just throw the chicken away. However, when we made it back to her home, there was no chicken and there was no napkin. And so my grandmother, of course, didn't even remember putting the chicken in her purse. And so I just let it go, cleaned out the purse, and went on my way. And at the time, she was living in North Carolina. I was here in Maryland. And so it was probably a couple of weeks later, I was back in Maryland. It was a hot summer day, and all of a sudden, it was this horrific smell in the car. And I'm like, what is this? So I pull over to try to figure out what it is. My grandmother had taken the chicken and stuffed it in the back seat in between the seat. And so putting things in unusual places is a common sign, warning sign that you will see in a loved one with dementia. Now this particular slide is something that truly hits home with me. And this is why I'm so passionate about the Dementia Friendly America Prince George's initiative and bringing awareness about dementia and also reducing fraud in individuals who have dementia. And it's decreased or poor judgment. And so what you find here is that a person will make choices that are not the right choice when it comes to money. And so they'll use poor judgment in dealing with money. They may give large sums of monies to telemarketers, neighbors, family members, or friends. And you have some individuals that are out there that will prey on them when they see, okay, something's going on, with Shonda right now. So then they're going to come to me and take advantage of me and, continue to come and get sums of money from me because they know that I won't remember that I gave it to you. And so my uncle that I so passionately talk about, he owned a home in Florida. He also resided in North Carolina at the time, but a real estate agent he had become acquainted with over the years when he lived in Florida, she just stayed in contact with him. They were doing a lot of development around the home that he owned in Florida. And so she had tried for years to get him to sell this home to her. And she was working with the developers. So my uncle would always tell her no, he didn't want to sell the home. But one year when she reached out to him, she noticed there was a change in, my uncle's cognitive abilities. And so she invited him down to Florida, and my uncle ended up selling his home to her for the cost of a car. And so we were not able to get him out of that contract because at the time he had not been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. This was before he had the train track incident. By the time he had the train track incident and almost lost his life, that was when we were finally able to get a diagnosis. But he sold this home before that time, and we were not able to get him out of that. And so if you have a loved one and you observed any of these warning signs that I've gone over so far, you definitely want to make sure that you are protecting them and that you are making sure that they're not, falling prey to telemarketers or even family members and friends as well. And also a person may pay less attention to grooming and keeping themselves clean. Hoarding is also a warning sign of dementia as well. So what's typical or common, we normally will, we can make a bad decision every now and then. Everyone can make a bad decision every now and then. Warning sign number 9, withdrawal from work or social activities. Now, this may be something that is hard to detect in someone who is like an introvert, and they're normally, reserved or to themselves. But what you want to look for in this is like if the person has a hobby or, they have a favorite team or something like that, and they're not able to keep up with what's going on with that favorite team. And social activities that they've normally been involved in, they kind of withdraw from those activities. This is something to look for. And so here, like I said, if you're an extrovert, it's easier to observe. But if it's a person who's an introvert, it may be harder to observe this warning sign. But you could, even if the person is still working and now they are no longer wanting to work on particular projects, or if they're involved in different ministries, or they no longer want to go to church. And, they're aware, they know that something's going on with their memory, and so they may avoid being social because of all the changes that are going on in their brain. Changes in mood and personality. So we see 3 individuals here. One, he kind of looks sad. One is very happy. And one, I'm saying this guy is angry. And so if you, a person who with personality or changes in mood and personality, they may become confused, suspicious, depressed, fearful, anxious, even angry. And so having someone that is always like joyful and now all of a sudden they're angry all the time or frustrated all the time or easily gets upset at work, home, or even with friends, especially when taken out of their comfort zone, this is a warning sign. Now, what's typical as we age is developing a specific way of doing things and then kind of becoming bothered or annoyed if you don't do it in that same way. And so I fold my sheets the same way. I put, the fitted sheets, you put the corners in first and then you're folding it. And now, Irma wants to come and help me fold my sheets. And Irma just folds the sheets and she doesn't do it in my way. So being a little annoyed, that she's not doing it in my same order, that's something common. But, really getting frustrated or agitated or fearful or anxious about things that normally didn't affect you, that is a warning sign to watch for. Now, if you notice any of the 10 warning signs in yourself or someone else, it's important to take action. And so what does taking action look like? Taking action means that you can make an appointment with your primary care physician. You could obtain a memory screening from your primary care physician. If you would like to receive like a private memory screening, Dementia Friendly America can also provide that memory screening. And if we provide the screening for you, then we'll provide a document for you that you can take to your physician. Even if your score is not below the threshold, you'll still have that document just to let your physician know that you've received the test. So if there is some concern with the screening, your physician would order more tests. So getting diagnosed for dementia, any form of dementia, is not as simple as I'm just forgetting things, and now I have dementia. You'll go through a series of physical tests, even mental and cognitive tests, brain imaging to actually make a diagnosis. It's actually a hard process to, it's not easy, or a simple process, I should say, to diagnose dementia. So with the memory screening, when we're out in the community and we're providing free memory screenings, a lot of times people will say, they don't want to know. And if it is something wrong, then, I'll just deal with it. I don't want to know right now. And so I offer to them that on the Dementia Friendly America team, we have the only UCLA certified memory trainer in Prince George's County. And so I think we only have one other in the whole state of Maryland, but in Prince George's County, we have one certified memory trainer. And so then my next plea is to let them know that in any illness, early detection is key. And so early detection, it's not only good for the person who's experiencing this memory loss, it's also good for the caregiver as well. The caregiver, it helps them to basically create documents that they need to have as the person illness progresses. There's a document called 5 Wishes that I think that everyone should complete, and you can get that at 5wishes.org. And it basically allows the person, to say what it is that they would like to occur, how they would like to be cared for, and, even in the end of life stages, what are some things that they would like to happen? Do you resuscitate or do you not resuscitate? And so early detection gives both the care partner and also the individual impacted by dementia an opportunity to plan for care. So let's go back and let's look at warning sign number 8, decreased or poor judgment. So what area of the brain is affected, or do you believe is affected, when you experience decreased or poor judgment? I'll give you a moment. Yes, correct. Damage to the frontal lobe of the brain eventually causes problems in intelligence with judgment and behavior. So what we need to remember today is that memory is variable. And so on a good day, a person may present themselves well, but what we should be tuning into is a change in their usual pattern of function and behavior. Here we have some resources for 2 caregiver support groups, also Dementia Friendly's email address, and the Alzheimer's 24-hour hotline. I thank you for joining us today for the 10 warning signs, and please, if you observe any of these signs, no matter at what magnitude, how small, please seek medical attention to find out exactly what's going on with you or your loved one. Thank you.